So media from a cultural perspective is extremely powerful. It basically brings new ideas to the general public. It helps determine public preferences. It basically causes entire seismic shifts in cultures. Think about new dances, new products, the introduction of trends, new technology. Media is the driving force behind a lot of adoption of change in our society. So it's critically important. From a business perspective, there's tons of money tied up in media. If you just think about advertising, television alone, you're talking about $80 billion in the United States changing hands based on television advertising alone. You add radio to that, you add print to that, you add digital to that, you're talking well over $100 billion in money changing hands just based on how people value advertising. So from a business and cultural perspective, media is one of the largest influencers on our society. Nielsen's products, it's hard to even overstate the importance that a role that Nielsen plays in this business world that is media. And I would just talk about that from two perspectives. First of all, Nielsen's products really help determine how content flows to the public. So shows that are positioned to appeal to young people, to African Americans, to Hispanics, to Asians. A lot of the positioning of those shows, the power and the survivability of those shows are really based on public preference. And Nielsen is the dominant determining factor on what is public preference for those types of media devices. That extends now even across audio because of the acquisition of Nielsen of Arbitron, and digital, where Nielsen plays a strong role, and of course, extremely dominant role in television. The second perspective that's just as important isn't as cultural in terms of distribution of content, but it has to do with how media outlets are valued. If you think about it, Nielsen essentially, or every Nielsen employee, there are thousands and thousands of them, gets up in the morning and the work they do determines the value of a media outlet. So if I have a little radio station and I want to sell it, what's the first thing people look at? They look at the ratings to determine the value of that outlet. If I have a television station and it's going to be merged with another one, or some money is going to change hands in an acquisition, it's all about the strength of the audience. And Nielsen plays that determining factor in a dominant way in the United States. Nielsen data is kind of like they have to have it. They have to have it more granularly. They use it to determine how successful they're being in drawing audience to their products. Nielsen produces data about, audience levels, audience flow. How do users of a television station or a radio station migrate during the day between their media choices? All that is critically important and is being produced ever increasingly fast by Nielsen. So used to be you'd produce reports every 6 months. Then you produce them every month. Now you're producing them weekly, daily, overnight data. In digital, there are products being introduced which are almost real time. So that data is weaving its way into the business processes of every one of these media outlets, and they use it intensely to adjust what they do in how to appeal to the public. So the call center is the leading edge of quality in many of Nielsen's products, because it's really the face and voice of Nielsen to the outside world that you're trying to seek to gain participation in surveys. So people don't understand what occurs in Oldsmar and all the back office processing and what it takes to produce ratings. What they understand is, I got a call from a Nielsen representative, and that person was cordial, and they were professional, and they were competent, and they weren't selling anything. They just wanted to gather participation in a survey. And that's what the public sees. So it is extremely important that the telephone center be as good as it can be, and that each and every person that's gathering data or getting participation in these surveys understands the critical role they play. That if they're not successful, Nielsen will not be successful, because they're the first face of what people see. If that face is not successful, they won't participate in research. They won't fill out a diary. They won't accept a household set meter. They won't accept a people meter. So these telephone center operations and the people, more importantly, inside them, each and every one of them, plays a highly critical role. The quality that goes into exactly how they interview, the way they ask questions, the way they converse with the respondent. Are they bilingual as necessary to relate to respondents in their own language? All of this is critical, and Nielsen invests in these processes for a specific reason, because the call center is so hugely important. It's hard to underestimate just how important a quality call center is to flow down into the rest of Nielsen's products, either good or bad. And where one person falls down in the call center, there are trickle-down effects all throughout the quality. So the call center is the critically important first line of contact, the view of the public of Nielsen, and they really pull it all together. They're the foundation for the quality of the product.